It is 1990. A man stands alone in his office on the 26th floor. Outside the window, New York City glitters like a million diamonds. But inside this room, there is only silence. The phone has stopped ringing. The bankers have stopped calling. Everyone knows the truth now. Donald Trump, the man who put his name in gold letters on towers and casinos, is almost $1 billion in debt. $1 billion. Say that number slowly. Try to imagine it. He is finished, destroyed, a joke, or so everyone believes. But wait, how did the son of a simple builder become the most famous businessman in America? And how did he lose everything only to rise again in ways nobody could imagine? This is a story about failure, about shame, about the cold, lonely nights when everyone tells you to quit, and about what happens when you refuse to listen. Let us go back to the beginning. Donald John Trump was born on June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York. His neighborhood was not fancy. The houses were small. The families were ordinary. But Donald's father, Fred Trump, was not an ordinary man. Fred was a builder. He made homes for working families. He was tough. Some people called him cruel. He believed in one thing above all else: winning. Second place meant nothing. Third place meant you were invisible. Only victory mattered in Fred Trump's world. Every night at the dinner table, young Donald listened to his father talk about business, about fighting for deals, about crushing your enemies. Fred would look at his children with cold blue eyes and say the same words again and again. You are a killer. You are a king. He wanted his sons to be warriors. He wanted them to be afraid of nothing. But this pressure came with a heavy price. Donald was not an easy child. He had too much energy. He could not sit still. He got into fights with other boys at school. He talked back to teachers. He broke rules just to see what would happen. His parents tried everything. Nothing worked. When Donald was 13 years old, his father made a decision that would shape everything that followed. He sent Donald away to the New York Military Academy. He was removing his son from the family. He was sending him to be fixed by strangers. Imagine this moment. You are 13 years old. Your parents tell you to pack your clothes. They drive you to a place with tall gates and gray buildings. They leave you there with boys you do not know. The doors close behind you, and suddenly you are completely alone. The military academy was brutal. Students woke before sunrise. They wore uniforms every day. They marched in perfect lines. Older students could punish younger ones for any small mistake. The food was cold. The beds were hard. The walls felt like a prison. For many boys, this place was crushing. It destroyed their spirit. But something strange happened to Donald Trump. Instead of breaking, he began to change. He found a way to survive. Then he found a way to lead. He became good at sports. He learned to command attention when he walked into a room. He discovered that confidence, even fake confidence, could be a powerful weapon. By the time he graduated, Donald had learned the most important lesson of his life: never let them see you hurt. Never let them see you fall. And maybe you have felt this too. That moment when you are far from home, surrounded by people who want to break you, and you realize something important. You can either become weaker, or you can become something else entirely. Donald Trump was not born strong. He was made strong by loneliness, by pain, by the cold gray walls of a place that wanted to crush him. After graduation, Donald attended college, first Fordham University, then the Wharton School of Business in Pennsylvania. He was not the best student in his class, but he had something more valuable than good grades. He had hunger. He had impatience. He wanted to build things that the world could not ignore. In 1971, at just 25 years old, Donald took control of his father's company. But he was not interested in building small houses in Queens. He looked across the river at Manhattan, at the glittering towers, at the famous streets where power lived and money never slept. That was where he wanted to plant his flag. But here is what nobody expected. The young man who seemed so confident was about to learn what real failure tastes like. His first major Manhattan project was the Grand Hyatt Hotel. Donald was young and unknown in the city. The bankers laughed at him. The experts shook their heads. They said this boy from Queens had no idea what he was doing. But Donald had learned something from his father. He knew how to fight when everyone expected him to lose. He convinced the city of New York to give him special tax treatment. He found investors who believed in his vision. He pushed through every wall, every rejection, every closed door. When the Grand Hyatt opened in 1980, it was a stunning success. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know the name Donald Trump. Next came Trump Tower in 1983. It rose 58 stories into the Manhattan sky. The building was bold and aggressive. Glass and brass and gold everywhere you looked. Critics called it tasteless. They called it excessive. But ordinary people loved it. Apartments sold for millions of dollars, and Donald put his name in giant golden letters on the front, visible from blocks away. By the late 1980s, Donald Trump was everywhere. His face appeared on magazine covers. He published a book called The Art of the Deal that sold millions of copies. He owned casinos in Atlantic City. He owned hotels. He owned an airline. He owned a professional football team. He lived in a golden penthouse apartment above his own tower. He had become exactly what his father always wanted: a king. But success can be the most dangerous thing in the world. It can make you believe you are untouchable. It can make you take risks that would terrify a reasonable person. It can whisper lies into your ear until you forget that gravity always wins. Donald borrowed more and more money. He built bigger casinos. He bought more properties. He believed the machine would never stop running. He believed he was too important to fail. He was wrong. In 1990, the American economy collapsed. People lost their jobs. They stopped gambling. They stopped buying expensive apartments. Donald's casinos in Atlantic City began losing $1 million every single day. The banks came knocking. They wanted their money back. All of it. Right now. Donald could not pay. Imagine this. Yesterday, your face was on the cover of every magazine. Today, you cannot pay your electric bill. Yesterday, everyone in New York wanted to be your friend. Today, when you call them, they do not answer the phone. And it got worse. His marriage to Ivana Trump fell apart in the most public way possible. Newspapers printed every embarrassing detail of their divorce, every secret, every failure, every weakness. The tabloids treated his pain as entertainment. His private life became a circus for strangers to enjoy. Donald would walk down the street in Manhattan, and he could hear people laughing. The man with the golden towers, the man who called himself a king, was now a joke that everyone told at parties. One day, Donald walked past a homeless man sitting on the sidewalk. He turned to his friend and said something that has become famous. "You see that man? He is worth $900 million more than me right now." It was a joke. But it was also mathematically true. The pressure crushed him from every direction. Donald could not sleep at night. He walked through his empty apartment at 3 a.m, looking at the city lights, wondering if everything was finished. He wondered if he should just declare bankruptcy and disappear. Start a new life somewhere nobody knew his name. Perhaps he remembered his father's voice in those dark hours. "You are a killer. You are a king." Perhaps some stubborn part of him simply refused to accept that the story was over. Here is what separates Donald Trump from hundreds of other failed businessmen, whose names you will never know. He did not run. He did not hide. Instead, he did something that required more courage than any deal he had ever made. He faced his enemies directly. He walked into rooms full of bankers who despised him, who wanted to destroy him and take everything he owned. And he looked them in the eyes and made them an offer. He told them the truth. The Trump name still had value. The Trump brand still meant something to millions of people. If they killed him financially, they would recover only a small percentage of their money. But if they let him keep working, keep fighting, keep building, he would eventually pay them back. Every dollar. It was a gamble. It was desperate. And somehow, it worked. The banks gave him more time. They restructured his debt. Donald sold his airline. He sold his yacht. He gave up control of several properties, but he survived, and he kept working. Day after day, year after year, deal after deal. He learned something priceless from failure, something that success could never teach. He learned that the world will forgive almost anything if you never admit defeat. He learned that reputation is something you can rebuild, one small victory at a time. By the late 1990s, Donald Trump was back. Not as rich as before, not as powerful, but still standing, still fighting, still putting his name on buildings. Then came an opportunity that would change his life forever. In 2004, a television producer approached him with an idea. A reality competition show about business. Contestants would compete for the chance to work for Donald Trump. Each week, he would eliminate someone. The show was called The Apprentice. Donald sat in a boardroom wearing an expensive suit. He looked at nervous contestants. He listened to their excuses. Then he pointed his finger and spoke 2 words that would become known around the world. "You're fired." The show was an enormous success. Millions of Americans watched it every week. Suddenly, Donald Trump was not just a businessman. He was a television star, a celebrity, an icon. The strange magic of television erased his failures from public memory. People forgot about the bankruptcies. They forgot about the $1 billion of debt. They only saw the towers, the confidence, the golden lifestyle. But Donald still had one more impossible dream. One more mountain to climb. He wanted to become President of the United States. For decades, people had asked him about politics. He always said maybe someday. In June 2015, he finally said yes. He rode down a golden escalator in Trump Tower and announced that he was running for president. The experts laughed again. Political professionals said he had no chance. He had never held any political office. He said things that shocked people. He broke every rule of traditional politics. But in small towns across America, in struggling factories, in places where people felt forgotten by politicians, his simple message found an audience. He promised to fight for ordinary people. He promised to make America great again. On November 8, 2016, Donald Trump was elected the 45th President of the United States. It remains one of the most surprising results in American political history. The boy from Queens who was sent away by his parents, the businessman who lost $1 billion, the man who heard the whole world laughing at his failures, he became the most powerful person on earth. Whatever you think about his politics or his personality, his life teaches us something true about failure and persistence, about the strange, unpredictable paths that success sometimes takes. He could have quit in 1990 when he owed more money than he could count. He could have accepted that the world had defeated him. He could have disappeared quietly like so many broken people before him. But he did not. And maybe you are fighting through your own dark chapter right now. Maybe you have lost something important. Maybe the people around you say it is time to give up. Remember this story. Remember that endings can be rewritten. Remember that the person who fails 100 times and stands up 101 times is the person who eventually wins. The story is not finished until you decide it is finished. Even when you are standing alone in the darkness, even when the whole world has given up on you, you get to decide what happens next.